What's going on YouTube? So over the last couple years, many automakers have been eliminating or consolidating their sedan offerings, but that is not so with Hyundai. They have actually doubled down with this all-new and very aggressive Sonata, which is even gaining a few more features this year in addition to all the style and tech it already had. But without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and see if this is the best midsize sedan money can buy. All right, so like I already said, Hyundai went really bold with this exterior design when they fully redesigned it last year. And you don't have to go far. You're gonna notice that right up here in the front with this huge grille. It takes up almost the entire front end, and it's finished in this metallic black color here, which really has a lot of contrast with most exterior colors, but especially this pearly white. Now, if you choose the base SE, that does have a slightly more conservative look, so some of you guys might prefer that, and you do have that option if you want it. Now, off to the side here, we have an even more aggressive and interesting element, and that's these LED headlights. So Hyundai has nicely included full LED headlights across all of the lineup, but that's not what's unique about it. It's actually this piece right here. When the car is off, this is just a regular piece of chrome that lines up with this the rest of this chrome, but when the car is on, this becomes a daytime running light. Really a unique element, especially when you see it at night. It really grabs your attention. Now, you may have already noticed it from the introduction, but if you don't recognize these wheels, that's because they are actually new for 2021. So Hyundai is now including on the SEL Plus trim level 19-inch alloys. With this really cool design. I think really stands out a lot, and that's the largest in the entire Sonata lineup. They are also wrapping this in Pirelli P0 all-season tires, so you have a higher performance tread since this is the sportier trim level. Now, your limited trim will continue to have 18-inch alloys, your SEL 17-inch alloys, and your SE 16-inch alloys. And then jumping up here to your mirrors, Hyundai does nicely include both heating and blind spot monitoring on all but the base model. Plus, if you choose the SEL Plus, you get the black mirror caps. Now, like Drew mentioned in the front, this all-new Sonata's design is very, very polarizing. And I think that's a good thing, especially in this crowded segment, because this looks like no other midsize sedan on the road. Now, what actually goes into that design itself? One of the coolest things, I think, is that the trunk actually kind of pinches up into an integrated spoiler, and then that integrates nicely with these full-length LED taillights. As you can see, the brake light is LED, and it goes across the entire back with Sonata branding. Then if we drop down on this model, we do have black trim on the rear diffuser, and we also have dual exhaust outlets on the right side. Now, to keep up with Camry and Accord, Hyundai has thrown in the entire SmartSense safety suite standard across the entire board. That includes even your fanciest systems like adaptive cruise with stop and go, forward emergency braking, and lane keeping assist with lane centering. But anyway, guys, that's going to sum up this really bold exterior for the Hyundai Sonata. Now let's go ahead and check out that really luxurious cabin inside. But before we do that, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. So on the Sonata, you will find the Smart Entry system standard on the SEL trim level and higher. And actually for 2021, we have a new key fob. It's a little bit rounder on the back and has a different design for the front buttons. Now, the other thing I need to mention is the digital key system, which uses an Android phone to unlock the doors. That does also come on the SEL Plus and above. Now, as far as getting inside the vehicle, just grab behind the handle since there is a sensor. And of course, checking out the inside, as you can tell, it's definitely got a nice and premium design, as well as some sporty touches here on this SEL Plus. Now obviously you are going to have some different choices as far as interior material and colors. So for your SE and SEL, they come with cloth seating in black or gray. This SEL Plus comes exclusively with this black combination of leatherette and then suede on the inside. And then the limited trim, that comes standard with real leather in your choice of black, gray, or camel colors. Turning over here to your door trim, you will notice the same materials reflected up here. So we have a leatherette material that runs across all the armrest as well as in this area above it, and the top is going to be soft touch. As far as your windows, they are going to be one touch auto up and down for the driver and passenger windows. And you do get the aluminum pedals here on the SEL Plus as well. Now as far as the seats, this is the 8-way power adjusting seat. The only model to not have this will be the very base SE. And then like I was already mentioning, we have the leatherette and suede combination. Really makes for a very nice looking seat, and I really dig the red piping that goes around it. Now in last year's Limited, I was very impressed by the material quality, and I am happy to report that on this slightly lower SEL Plus, you do have pretty much the same materials on board. So across your upper dash, the only part that's going to be hard is going to be above the gauges. All the rest of this area is actually going to be covered in a leatherette material with a stitching detail. Now driving down below that, we have padded plastic that runs all through here. And you will have some hard touch plastic down here on your lower areas, but everything does fit together extremely well. And on all but the very base model, you will have push button start. And after you start it up, you will be greeted with one of my favorite elements of this new Sonata, and that is this 12.3-inch reconfigurable gauge cluster display. Now there are some different versions on the lower trim levels, but the SEL Plus and the limited trim levels come standard with this display. It is very, very vivid. It also has a lot of reconfigurability, so you can change off that part as well as in the middle. And then when you change the drive modes, the entire design changes in a really cool way. So this is a really nice display. Now, if you want the blind spot camera system where the it shows your blind spot in the gauges, that's going to be limited exclusive as well as a head-up display. Now coming back to the steering wheel, of course we have electric power assisted steering, and all the models come with this new Hyundai steering wheel. If you want leather, that's going to be the SEL Plus and above, and here with this SEL Plus we also get the unique red color contrast stitching and perforations on the side. Now as far as the wheel itself, it is going to be manual tilt and telescoping, and heating is reserved for just the limited trim. Alright, but now it's time to put the Sonata to the test with our coupon test. So we'll look underneath the center console here. This is really large, lots of space, and we do have a nice felt lining down at the bottom. So when we get our big stack of coupons out, they fit in there no problem at all. We don't even have to fold them in half or anything. Now up in front of that, we've got two cup holders. We also have a nice slot where you can slide your cell phone. And then you've got a really large storage area up here in the front. A lot of physical connections right here, or you can set your phone right here on this wireless phone charging pad, standard on SEL Plus and Limited. Now this new generation of the Sonata has switched to an all electronic shifter. So obviously you're just going to press the D for drive. When you do, you can shift manually with the paddle shifters here on the SEL Plus. And then the R is going to be reverse. Now you will notice a standard backup camera appears on all models with active trajectory. However, if you want the 360-degree camera option, that's going to require the limited trim level. You do also have an electronic parking brake as well as a brake hold function. Alright, so let's jump on up to the next thing on the dashboard, which are our climate controls here, which I think have a really clean and classy design to them. Now, all but the very base model, that's going to have this dual zone automatic setup. And as you can tell, you just twist these really high quality feeling knobs to adjust the temperature, which appears right in the circle. And then you've got physical controls for all the other functions around it. Hyundai does also nicely include 3-stage heated seats on all but the very base model, which is definitely a nice touch for this segment. And if you want seat ventilation, that is also available, but you will have to choose the limited model. Okay, so now that brings us up here to our audio system. So most of the trim levels, including this SEL Plus, they come standard with a 6-speaker sound system. So we'll go ahead and take a sample of it. Overall sound quality is pretty good for a base sound system, but of course if you want something with a little bit more oomph, you can get a Bose premium sound system optional on this SEL Plus via the technology package or standard on the limited. Okay, so let's take a look around our Hyundai Blue Link display here. So this is obviously the 8-inch display. This is standard on almost all the models except for the limited, which comes standard with the 10.25-inch display, and you can option that on to this SEL Plus. As far as the actual technology on board, you're looking at the same software as before, so you won't have navigation unless you go for the big display, but you will have standard Android Auto and Apple CarPlay abilities. Now jumping on up here, we do have an auto dimming mirror with the frameless design and HomeLink universal remotes on SEL Plus. Up top here, I do want to point out that we don't have LED lighting, but you can get that if you go for the technology package. And then we are also missing a moonroof. You can get the panoramic moonroof on SEL Plus via that technology package, and it is standard on the limited trim. Now this is a mid-size sedan, so the rear seat is actually a very important part of this vehicle. And I have to say I'm very, very impressed just sitting back here because this is a really nice, spacious rear seat. Now as far as your legroom measurements, it's going to come in at 35 inches of your legroom, 38 inches of your headroom. However, I have to kind of dispute those measurements because this really does not feel much smaller than the Honda Accord and Toyota Camry, which do have larger measurement figures. And sitting behind Drew's seating position, I have about 8 inches of rear leg room. I can also slide my feet up under the seat, so certainly not going to have any space issues. And then as far as the features, even though this isn't the top trim, we do still have vents. We also have a charging USB port, and if we fold down the center armrest, we do have cup holders inside. Now walking up to the trunk, as you're probably noticing, we do have the hands-free smart trunk on this SEL Plus trim as well as the limited, and that's actually a quite nice feature, especially considering they dampened it to open up, so it's almost like a power trunk. Now as far as the space itself in here, you're going to have 16 cubic feet, which does place it at the top end of the segment. That is larger than the Toyota Camry, although slightly below the Honda Accord. And as far as how Hyundai has finished it back here, it's finished pretty nicely, so we do have a carpeting along the floor. And if we lift it up, you are going to find a spare tire, and it is also worth knowing that the seats do fold 60-40 split. Now on this SEL Plus, we do just have the manual seat. However, new for 2021 is that the Limited adds a 6-way power adjusting seat over here. And then if we open up the glove box in front, you do have a pretty good sized glove box. I'd give this like a medium rating, but that definitely means it can fit coupons, so you could definitely save on food for years to come. And up top, we do have a sun visor with a large mirror as well as a light, and you can also detach it as well as extend. So that was up to about 60 miles an hour, up a pretty good grade. And of course, we've got the SEL Plus trim level. So with the Sonata, you've got two different engine options available right now. So what we got is the 1.6 liter turbo 4-cylinder, and that's going to make 180 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque. Now, the base two trim levels, they come with a naturally aspirated 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. Now, the interesting thing is that they make very similar power figures to each other, but the kind of the torque and horsepower numbers are more or less reversed.
Yeah. 191 and 181 for the normal engine. So
it actually makes more power, the standard version, but this is the torquier option. But as far as the way that it feels, I definitely think it feels good when you're behind the wheel. You really can feel the torque. You know, it has a nice sensation of acceleration, and both engines' numbers are, you know, pretty closely equivalent to the main competition.
Yeah, and I think it feels a little punchy. You know, it has that punchy feel to it. Now, it is also worth noting that there is a performance inline version that will arrive before the end of this year, so that's going to be a really awesome Sonata. I can't wait to test that one out specifically.
Yeah, look forward to that review coming hopefully before the end of 2020.
But cruising along here at highway speed in the Sonata. Now, this is a mid-size sedan, so it's going to be pretty comfort focused, and I have to say I very much like the way the Sonata is riding here at around 55 miles an hour. Even though this is the sport-oriented trim, it definitely has a comfortable feel. It's not like something that's not going to soak up the bumps or anything like that.
Even with those new 19-inch wheels.
And I will get a sound level reading so we can compare to some of the rivals.
We're going to be going 55.
Looks like we're going to be sitting at around 56 decibels, which is very much class competitive. It's definitely worth noting that when you compare to stuff like the Toyota Camry, this is going to be a quieter overall experience because the Camry's engine is pretty loud and this engine is pretty quiet.
As far as your transmission, you have an 8-speed automatic. Shifting is very smooth, definitely does a good job. You know, it's seamless, just kind of blends into the background, but it's also very responsive. You know, when you put your foot down, it is ready to go, especially when you kick it into the sport mode. Now, power is put down to the front wheels only, which is actually going to be today's airball, because a lot of the competition at this point is starting to offer all-wheel drive, including this model's cousin or sibling, whatever you want to call it. The Kia K5 now has all-wheel drive, so it's a little interesting to me that that's not available right now on the Sonata, but maybe they'll add it in the future.
Now, to go along with that, the Slam Dunk. Now, I think really specifically in this trim level, there's a lot to like about this Sonata because, I mean, really, you have a really good price point and just a lot of features. So our Slam Dunk is going to be value. It's probably not a surprise to you. Hyundais and Kias have really great value, so we say it in a lot of our videos, but this trim in particular is certainly a fantastic value for what you're paying. And now as far as the pricing itself, the SE is going to start at $23,600, SEL is $25,700, SEL Plus, which is what we have here, is $28,200, and then the Limited is going to start at $33,850. That's worth noting, it's around a $200 increase this year, so not too much for 2021. Now this one does also have a few accessories added onto that, and then you add the destination charge of $975, brings this one to $30,195. So just a hair over 30 grand for this. Really quite impressed with that price point. There's been a lot of, you know, competitors that we've been in that are more expensive than that, and you really get less equipment as well.
Now up until this point, I haven't mentioned the driving dynamics yet, but definitely need to mention that, especially since this SEL Plus comes with the new 19-inch wheels with the Pirelli P0 tires.
Nice.
But they definitely feel really nice. The steering, once I put it in a sport mode, really gets a lot tighter. You can see, look how fast this responds. Really impressed in that regard. And then you saw how flat it cornered, going around that corner. You know, Hyundai's really focused a lot on driving dynamics, and they really have nailed it here in the Sonata.
Now let's wrap things up with the fuel economy. So there are quite a few different fuel economy figures for the Sonata depending on what trim level you get. There are 2 different engines, as we mentioned earlier. What we're looking at here for this SEL Plus and Limited is going to be 27, 37, 30 combined. And then the highest you can get is going to be in the SE at 32 combined. So it's going to range from 30 to 32.
But overall, I think that there quite simply is a lot to like about this Sonata. You know, we walked away very impressed last year driving the Limited trim level, and now this year it's our first time behind the wheel of this SEL Plus. Once again, extremely impressed, and I also really appreciate the upgrades Hyundai made to this trim level this year, because this is honestly the best looking Sonata that we've ever seen. And it, of course, still comes in at a really strong value of just a little over $30,000. Well, guys, that's all for this in-depth review of the 2021 Hyundai Sonata SEL Plus. We really hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, be sure to help us out by hitting that subscribe button down below. There you will find tons of other automotive content, plenty of content across the Hyundai lineup, as well as its competitive set like the Toyota Camry and Honda Accord. Anyway, we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.